Hi everyone, welcome to eLearnChat, where talk, it's knowledge. And today we're going to talk. And with us is our co-host, the one and only, the lovely Leslie Price, also known as the Emma Peel of eLearning, the Queen of eLearning, and the Networking Queen of eLearning. What else do you do?
Oh, get a life.
Get a life. She's Scottish. She has a life. Hey, there's some good news on your front. Tell us a little bit about it before we start.
Well, we've now launched the Learn and Peel capsule in rural Kenya. So we are now able to take e-learning to places and to people that have never experienced e-learning before. And if you have a look at the quote that's in the press release there, Eric Kamuri, my contact, just describes it as being a magic box.
Very cool. Well, we're going to have a show real soon on Learn Appeal again, so you can learn all about it. It's a wonderful project. And Leslie is one of the people heading it up. She does wonderful work. You have a big heart, Leslie.
And we're so grateful to you, Rick, and your team for supporting all the work that we do.
Oh, we've done very little other than just try to push you. But, hey, she's got a big heart. It's good work. So thank you from everybody who could thank you. Thank you. You do a good work. You do a good job. So anyway, we got a good guest today. Let's run the intro and then we'll introduce him. And we are back. You know, Leslie, you like rock music too, don't you? We like that kind of nice heavy metal fun. Have some good time music. We always try to get those kind of intros.
I'm a country girl myself.
Are you?
Sorry.
We've got with us today George Vilches from, JCA Solutions. JCA. Oh, I forgot the C. How are you today, George?
Doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we were talking a little bit pre-show. George is one of us. He's a geek. He loves to develop. He knows everything about everything that we don't know about, and then some. So we are here. You go. What are you going to talk about today? I think Training Locker.
TrainingVault.
TrainingVault. I'm sorry.
And the challenges around content distribution in a learning world.
Yeah. Everybody was telling me Locker earlier. My wife goes, it's Training Locker. Training Locker. Okay.
Recent rebranding. There was a bit of complication around the name.
Was there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is actually TrainingVault now.
Yes, it is.
Got it. So what is TrainingVault?
So our big idea here is that content distribution for people who are creating content for lots of different vendors is a really hard problem to keep control of. What's the number one thing that happens when you're done with your content? Okay, you want to sell it to lots of people. You try to give them access to it. Well, most people already have some platform to consume their content on. So then you have to let go of your content. It's SCORM or Experience API, AICC, whatever. You give it over to them. And now it's on their platform and you don't know how much they're using. You don't know how you're ever going to get them to update it. So now you're stuck in kind of this limbo where, well, you hope everybody's doing things the way your contract says it. And you can't help them. You can't maintain it. You can't manage it for them. So now you're kind of trapped in this. How do I help move my customers forward with the content that they already have, or the content we build for them that we update all the time?
That's interesting.
It's interesting that you're talking about content curation, because in the olden days, curation was about curating things in a museum. And if things are in a museum, they don't necessarily get updated. They are the way that they were then. And what you seem to be saying is you can find a way to enable people to update what's happening.
That's right. So we see a lot of spaces where there's constantly things moving forward, whether it's regulations and food safety training. Management training is constantly evolving. The way people approach the regulations, or sometimes even not the regulations, but just the fact that like new information comes out all the time. Your content is as much a living creature as any of the regulations and the bodies that manage all these things. So you can't just, a lot of organizations really struggle with how do I keep my platform up to date with your content? Why make them? What if you can just do it yourself for them and it's contractually managed how that's taken care of?
Now, is this a little bit like DRM of a sort, where you're protecting also the content?
Absolutely. It can function in a DRM-like context. So not only are you dealing with the problems of distributing it to lots of different platforms, but you're dealing with the how much can we distribute? Is it by number of students? Is it by the number of times it's opened? Video platforms are often dealing with the problem of it's not how many people see it, it's the number of times it's viewed.
Right.
So how often you open it, or even cross sections of those things, students across a number of courses, so that you can work off of there's a lot of different licensing models based on how it is that you approach the type of training you're doing. So why can't your content delivery system match the way that you deal with selling your content?
That's interesting. Yeah. So when you sell this to a client, or when a client buys it and attaches it to their software, I imagine there's some sort of link back to the home ship, which then checks the rights for the package, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, where they're allowed to go. Wait a minute, we didn't license this server. Stuff like that?
You can take it in that direction. Mm-hmm. We tend to think that the biggest problem is not just where it can go, is how much it can go. And so okay. I'd say the lion's share focus is more on making sure the right amount is used, no matter which platforms it's used across. Okay. Now, you can limit it on a per platform basis, but we find most people are worried a lot more about how much is getting used.
Now, when you say how much, what do you mean by how much?
So let's say you have a management training course. It's 15 independent SCORM packages, just as an example. You put those 15 independent SCORM packages on, you release what we call stubs. These are connectors that would go. Now, a lot of people, you may have okay, you can come to my platform to buy my courses, fine. Yeah. But when you're doing management training for a large organization, they've already got learning management systems. They've already got content consumption platforms. So we give connectors that can speak the standards of SCORM or Experience API on their platform and embed it in that experience. So when you're embedding in that experience, well, now you're not presenting it from a platform you control, but you're still using all of these traditional e-learning course type experiences. So we make it so that you can glue these things together, but you can still make sure that, we've enrolled 500 of our managers on this, and we're only licensed for 250. Well, when manager 251 shows up, you get a message, and they're not allowed to pursue their content until the actual contract stuff is worked out. So you can make sure that you're allocating the amount of training to the right number of people.
Got it. And actually,
can I just ask a question there, George? Sure. Are you also able to recognize how people are using it? So are they just simply looking at it, or are they going through the course?
We're able to collect all of the experience data. Now, with all of the recent GDPR and such, we have a lot of sensitivities around what we do collect and what we don't collect, and what you're signed for and what you're not signed for. And so there are things you can turn off in the system where you can make it a slightly more passive experience. And then, because we're still working with e-learning standards, you're still working with SCORM, we have dealt with the technological problems around making sure that even though the course is distributed from a completely independent platform, all the data about that experience ends up in their learning management system or whatever platform where they would be collecting this data. So that way, they can do the reporting and the data management and the student management that they already do, and we can build a different view of the world based on that same type of thing. So we can, to the extent the courses allow you to, we can do modifications and management of that experience as well.
And what about the learner? Can the learner see any of the data?
Not intentionally. This is very much...
The reason I ask is because it's not always what the manager sees. A lot of it is about what the learner has done. And I don't know, a lot of learners see so much and do so much, they go, oh my God, did I actually do that?
This version of the platform is focused on the content distribution and the overall aggregate reporting side of the experience. Learners don't come to TrainingVault. Learners stay within their own various systems and are provided the facilities that their systems provide. We are, as an organization, a heavily integration-based organization. And so what we tend to do is provide the baseline experience, solve all the annoying technical problems about connecting all of these pieces together, and then let each group that has a particular way of approaching their experiences with their learners do what they do with their learners. Now, that having been said, there's been some discussion of this is a great sort of backing for an Open Sesame-like product where a learner could have a more direct engagement and experience with this. Yeah. We're exploring the idea, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Something to work towards, hey?
There is always something to work towards. The ideas wall is a mile long.
Especially in technology.
It turns out that as long as you have fingers to type and brains to throw at it, you can keep building larger and larger platforms. And one of the hard parts is where do you draw the line? When has the platform gotten too big or is solving too many problems to not really focus down what your core competency is?
Now, if we take it a step back, I think one of the problems in e-learning has always been and continues to be the authoring tools don't always publish well. And they don't have good SCORM wrappers. They don't integrate well. That's one of the biggest issues that we see as developers. When we put it out anywhere, and we've worked with probably 20 different LMSs, your results will vary, and boy, do they vary. And that's one of the toughest parts. I mean, and another tool that you guys used to do, or I think still have, is the simple SCORM packager. That saved our butts many times back in the old Captivate days, about probably 7, 8, 10 years ago, whatever it was. It was hard to get good packaging from a lot of different tools. And so your package, the simple SCORM packager, made it a lot easier for us to package the courses, create multiple SCOs, and have them managed as one course, something that the tools didn't do all that well. And even in today's age, the tools don't do it that well. And the vendors don't always do it that well, the LMS vendors. So it is interesting because you have filled that niche in the past. What do you see as some of those issues? Do you think they're going to go away eventually where publishing can become easy, nobody has to worry about it too much? To this day, most people do not get what an LMS does, how it works, why it works. Mm-hmm. They think they have to write these complex, ridiculous menu schemes inside of a course when the LMS can handle it all.
We were getting lucky for a little bit there in that the Experience API standard had taken all of the sequencing and navigation out of the manifest. Mm-hmm. There was whatever menu building you were going to do, you were building at the course level.
Okay.
With the reintroduction of CMI5, which is the manifest standard that lives on top of XAPI, they've introduced a whole sequencing navigation standard back in. Right. So we're going to go right back to the problem of LMS is doing a terrible job of controlling how the course handles its flow.
Right.
We're actually working on a version of Simple SCORM Packager now to deal with CMI5 context as well as SCORM context because it's going to be that exact same problem all over again.
Yeah, you guys had a great program in that. It for $100, I think it was $100 back then, and it worked. It worked beautifully.
Yeah, I feel like that program kind of is the essence of everything that we do. It's there's a small problem that's really hard that if we can just distill it down to its essence and then just focus on solving that, we don't hit the 100% case. We hit the 95% case in a really accessible way. Yeah. And I feel like TrainingVault is exactly that same type of problem. We don't touch every e-learning standard. We don't touch every single LMS platform. But if you speak any of the big standards, we can get your content to you. We're not looking to be the platform that you come and you build an entire utter solution on. We're looking to be just a distribution platform. We have other things to solve those other parts of this space.
So is that a bit, just to say something probably a bit daft, is that like KISS? Keep it simple?
As an integrations company, the number one thing we find is that there is no keeping it simple. But if we can just bring the bar down to where everybody can stomach it, that's about as good as we get. We never achieve KISS, but we try.
It's hard in a world that...
I'm never, ever, ever going to achieve KISS with technology.
Well, you can. It's just the problem is the web introduces so much complexity. It doesn't have to, but it was designed sort of that way. And as a result, you're kind of stuck trying to get around the complexity. And it is complex sometimes when you're developing apps and you've got to know, I love like the GUI IDs. This is how you identify processes or programs. And you got I forgot how many letters or numbers log it is. It's huge. Yes. And people look at that and go, what's that? That's your GUI ID. And they go, goo. Yeah, goo, like guck. It's just, one of those things you deal with. But so, simple is not a function of the web. It's how you write around it.
when you talk about writing around it, I mean, look at the very essence of the web, JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
It's a language designed in 10 days that we now have almost 25 years of architecture built on top of it. And each layer gets a little bit more rickety than the last. And sure, now they're trying to reconstruct it with WebAssembly and such to use those runtimes without letting the rickety tower that is JavaScript keep everything going. But almost nobody writes JavaScript anymore. You write things that compile down to JavaScript.
Right.
Because, and well, you keep adding layers, it's just going to get more inscrutable, not less.
Yep, and I love your idea of WebAssembly because
there's the potential, Rick, for another invite onto eLearnChat. Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet.
He's a brilliant dude.
I thought Al Gore invented the internet. No, I'm sorry, that was a joke. But I think he took credit for it. But anyway, he would be an interesting person. But if you look at the internet, it was a combination of mostly public defense, DARPA, and others who were involved with it, and it's an interesting platform in a lot of different ways. I still hope it's going to be used for good one day. There's a lot of bad going on the internet right now, and we'll see. But it is definitely evolving in a lot of ways. Imagine what your life was like 10, 15 years ago before the internet. Or let's say about in 1997 it became pretty popular, or was starting to become popular, 96, 97. Imagine what we've come from there in 21, 22 years. It's pretty amazing. And people now are completely indoctrinated to the internet. They want the internet. Sure. We all do.
I've lost the ability to remember anything. I can just look it up now.
Isn't it funny? But that's true. You're right, because now you can ask Siri or ask Alexa or whomever, hey, what's something? What's that? What's this? And trivia is right at your fingertips at all times. But it's interesting.
If you have connectivity, and we can't make even the assumption that everybody in the US or the UK has connectivity. Because connectivity actually still costs money.
It does, and good connectivity costs a lot more money. For example, we pay. I think we're paying $100 a month right now at home for 300 megabits down and 25 up. The 300 down is good. 25 up, not so hot, but then we don't do much uploading from home. At work, we pay, I think, about a little under $500 for 500 megabits down and 500 megabits up. So we're getting good bandwidth at work, and now 1 gigabyte's available. And we're going, that's only like $650. So we don't need it really because we have more than enough bandwidth with what we have now, but you can get in some areas good bandwidth. We happen to be one of the places they test bandwidth. It's really interesting. AT&T and others do a lot of testing out of this area. I don't know why, but we just happen to wind up being where a lot of testing's done. So we tend to get fast bandwidth before others. But you're right, there are neighborhoods and places anywhere in the U.S. and probably any other where in the world. Yeah. You're lucky you get 5, 10 megabits, period. Period. Just enough for a download, not too much for any uploading.
And that's not even counting all the people who are living only on satellite. One of my team members is on vacation right now, and she's completely inaccessible. The satellite's down right now, and so she has no internet access whatsoever. Somewhere up in the mountains of Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like, well, I'll see you next week. You're off.
You're off. That's funny. Where are you located?
So you don't even have to be overseas not to have connectivity.
No,
not at all.
No, where are you folks located?
We're in Orlando, Florida. Kind of right under the mouse ears.
Okay. That's pretty nice. I like Orlando. It's a nice place.
Oh. It's beautiful. The early summer, late summer, all of our summer seasons, really.
Yep, that's true. I've been there in 110 degrees and 100% humidity. Not so fun. And I grew up
standard day. No problem.
Standard day, yeah. And the lizards is just watching you going.
My parents used to go to Florida every year.
It's where we are. Being right next to the theme parks means that we are in the middle of that tourist central. And so it's kind of a fascinating experience, both from a learning people's perspective and from just general people watching perspective, to see how folks from every different part of the world are having to interact with everyone else.
Yep.
Gives you a lot of context for the struggles of when you have to present information to people from any given culture, how much nuance and context is lost in every tiny thing you present to them.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about that last week with David Kelly, how important context is. So it's not just content, it's context.
Yeah. And it's amazing in today's day and age, they still don't teach very good writing skills to a lot of instructional designers. They don't. The writing is secondary to course design, which isn't all that difficult more often than not. So some of the basic skills of writing just don't exist. And that's in general population, but if you can't write, it's really hard to put things in context many times. And that's one of the issues I think we all face.
It's from a technology perspective or a technologist perspective, writing is probably the least emphasized skill as well. So finding good technical writers alone is a challenge, let alone just the level of deep technical communication that you have to be able to abstract for people who don't spend all day, every day in it.
Right. Well, and the tech writer has to be able to actually ask the correct questions from the techies to write it down and then convert it to standard English so somebody else could maybe understand it. And we don't see, you're right, it is hard to find good tech writers. In fact, often we find that tech writers are better instructional designers than instructional designers because they understand what questions to ask better usually. Or I'll take a journalist usually over that because the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That's good. Then you're asking some questions, and you can figure out what to write from there. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a different world we're running into.
One of the things I always said that I was actually quite good at doing was being a translator. And when you work in learning and you have to work with senior management and also work with the techies, you have to translate between all three.
Yeah. One of these days I'll tell you my translator.
I can hear an echo on the line.
Are you hearing an echo? I don't hear it.
Rural Oxfordshire.
Now I can tell, George, you and I are both ex-programmers or programmers. When she said something, we both went, That's programmer speak.
We're still taking in the information, trying to figure out how to process it.
Yeah. You need to be able to learn to translate.
Yes. Well, George, it's been an absolute pleasure having you come on today and talk about the product. What's a good way for people to get a hold of you and find out more?
So the product itself is at TrainingVault.net, and the primary company website is listed down there, JCASolutions.com. Our entire product suite for all our SCORM, XAPI, and other e-learning standards integration things can be found there. And all of the phone numbers and email addresses you need are right there at the bottom. So reach on out. We'd love to talk.
That's great. And as a customer of theirs, we've had some of their products. Great stuff. It works.
Thank you.
It works. Now,
that's the most ringing endorsement.
It's always nice to work with tools that work. And we're fussy. So I'll tell you, we criticize a lot more than we compliment. So you guys do good work.
That warms my heart. Thank you.
So, you're more than welcome.
And I would love to chat to you about LearnPeel.
Leslie, we'll send you George's. If you don't have it, we'll send you his email address so you guys can contact.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're more than welcome. And if you guys are watching in the chat room, please subscribe, give us your feedback, get in touch with George, and take a look at what LearnPeel is doing. I think you're going to love everything you see. Anyway, thanks to all of you for showing up, and thanks, George, for coming. And Leslie, as always, a pleasure. And we will see you next week on eLearnChat. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.